Greetings everyone, welcome back to Blade Bias. Before we begin, I just wanted to thank everyone who came out to the Bally Awards and watched last night. It was a really fun show. I think it went well and people seemed to enjoy it. I want to give a huge thank you to Ty for helping out with the stream. Huge thank you to all the people that made presentations. There were some really good, really entertaining ones last night. And of course, a huge congratulations to all of the nominees and the winners. If you're interested in watching the Bally Awards, the VOD is still up and available on my other channel, camaroEE. The link to that channel is always in the description of these videos. But with that, that finally marks the end of me shilling the Bally Awards at the beginning of these videos, at least until next year. And speaking of next year, I just wanted to say that if this channel doesn't upload very much in January, I'm okay, don't worry. I'm going to be taking a bit of a break for most of January. I'm not sure exactly how long, but I will be back eventually. I just usually like to take a little bit of a break, especially after the Bally Awards, especially after a year of fairly consistent uploading every other day. Just going to take some time to myself. So, Happy New Year. I'll see you when I see you. And let's get into a not super overdue, but slightly overdue episode of Flip the Script, episode 5. I've broken out the Nabali's wing for this video, and we're going to go through the comments of episode 4 and answer some of you guys' questions. For this video, leave some questions in the comments for me to answer on episode 6 when I do it, sometime next month or early February. And we can keep the train going. Try and leave the questions away from the typical what balisong would you recommend, or like, what should I get, the cheese or the reverie? Stuff like that I probably won't answer. So if you keep it away from that, you'll have a better chance of me answering your questions in the next one. Without further ado, let's get into the comments from last video. Question coming in from 24 Scott, who I really do actually quickly want to shout out. I've had some awesome conversations with this guy on Instagram. And he actually uploads on YouTube. So if you're looking for people, more balisong people to watch, you might be interested in checking him out. Scott says, you've grown so much over your years of flipping, recording, putting voice to your opinions, building a social media following, creating the Bally Awards, and interacting with fans. When you look back at your journey, what accomplishment are you most proud of? And what do you think has had the biggest impact on your life? What a great question, first of all. But yeah. My balisong journey, the last 4.5 years, have been nothing short of a roller coaster in a dream. To say that I went from making a one-off project that might have had 1 or 2 more videos after it, to now 4.5 years later, having people ask me about my balisong opinions, being able to say that I've been to the biggest balisong-ish convention, being able to say that I got to sit on the couch and record a video with my favorite balisong creators of all time, who I can unironically call friends at this point, is insane. It's been a 1 in a million journey, it feels like, and it really has been my personal winning the lottery. I cannot think back on the last 4.5 years without thinking how lucky I have been. And it really is all thanks to you guys. So I appreciate you guys, but the biggest impact on my life, it's been the people that I've met. I've met some truly amazing people in the balisong hobby, and some people that I can call some of my closest friends. People like Brandon, Will, Pyro, Ted, Ty. I've known Ty for 20 years at this point, but it did bring us closer together, having finished high school and then kind of starting these balisong channels together. It absolutely brought Ty and I closer than we would have otherwise been for that period of time. So even just going to Blade Show, like interacting with people that I really only interact with at Blade Show, is such an awesome time. So the people I think have made the biggest impact on my life. But if you think that's kind of a cop-out answer, dude, the biggest impact, I don't really know. I think it would probably just be the fact that I make videos, so I have a lot more appreciation for when like someone else's YouTube video is really good, understanding the work that they put into writing and editing and like creating a story. So it's kind of actually increased my appreciation for YouTube videos in general. and also just helped me build a deeper connection and a deeper interest in hobbies in general. I don't think this shelf over here would exist if I didn't have balisongs to really dive into and show me what it's like to dive headfirst into a hobby like that. As for the other part of your question, what accomplishment are you most proud of? It would probably have to be the Bally Awards. Like, besides the also kind of cop-out answer of just saying, like, this channel, because obviously building a community of over 20,000 people it's a pretty big achievement for me. I would say the Bally Awards are something that is even bigger. Creating this thing that people are actively excited for, that people come together to watch each and every year, and continuously doing it for 4 years straight, despite the fact that it has been one of my biggest workloads since I've since I finished college. I did not quit college. I'm proud of myself for doing that. So I would say my proudest achievement is the Bally Awards. And the biggest impact has been, the people. Unless you count the impact being the fact that I have to film these once every other day to upload them to YouTube. Because as small as that 20-minute impact of time is, that's still a pretty big impact on how I normally live my life. So there you go. Thank you for the question, Scott. A really excellent one. Coming in from Nova, what do you think the peak of price to performance is? At what point does it not become worth spending more if your main focus is a better flipping experience alone? I would have to say it's right around that $300 mark. For $300 in today's balisong hobby, you can get the Kraken, which is a balisong that most high-tier flippers regard as one of the best, one of the most consistent. It's a lot of high-tier flippers like choice to flip in competition. But for $300, you also get to experience titanium, at least in some form, with things like the Superfly, things like the original kite, if it still existed. It still allows you to dip your toes into the titanium stuff. I would say $300 for flipping performance alone is right where you want to be spending, where it kind of plateaus out. Because a Seraph, as I always say, does not flip $400 better than a Kraken. You're paying for other things in that Seraph's experience. So I would say, if you want a titanium balisong, it's probably around $400 or $450. If you're looking for aluminum or you're okay with some of the cheaper titanium options, $300 is really all you need to spend. In some cases, you can actually get peak flipping for like $200. If you look at something like even just the Kraken trainer, might not be peak flipping, but it's still kind of getting there. Even some things in the sub $100 price range, like the wing that I'm flipping right now, something like the cheese even, is really pushing that like $200 value proposition in terms of flipping experience alone. But if you're looking for that sweet spot, I would say $300 right there. Just get a Kraken. That's kind of just like the peak of flipping performance in the current hobby as it stands. Thank you very much for your question. Here's one from Brendan that I've kind of answered already. He says, how long have you been flipping? I have been flipping for 4.5 years now. I started on August, I want to say 19th, 2021 is when I got my Squiddy B in the mail. I would actually be able to give you an exact date if you gave me a second here. And instantly with the power of editing, I can tell you that I was actually wrong. It was actually August 6th, 2021. So a little under 4.5 years, but we'll round up to the nearest half. I've been flipping for 4.5 years. And I will tell you right now, my skill does not show that I've been flipping for 4.5 years. Some of the best people in our hobby, people like Vaver is the one who comes to mind, who I've most recently talked about how long they've been flipping for, have only been flipping since 2023. So don't look at me and be like, oh, is that how, are balisongs so difficult to learn that you only get that good in 4.5 years? No. My focus on this hobby has obviously been more about the content creation side of things, which has kind of turned me away from learning as much as I can. So don't look at me as like the ruler of, oh, that's how good I'll be in 4 years. No, you could probably, if you really grinded balisongs, you could get as good as I could and like as I am in like 6 months to a year. And I've seen people do that. There's so many people who are better than me that flip half as long. In fact, there's actually, I can't remember who it is, but there is an incredible flipper who started the same month that I did. and just outclasses me in flipping in every single way possible. But that's what you get when you don't focus on flipping, as I haven't. But thank you for your question. Dylan says, what do you think about heavily modifying balisongs? I got a Telesto blade on titanium fly tie lucha handles, and it's sweet and certainly unique, but I kind of destroyed 2 knives to do it. Any thoughts? I mean, I'm not going to be the guy to police you and tell you how to use the things that you bought with your money, but I personally am not really a huge fan of destroying 2 knives to make 1 knife. What I would say is if you had like some already destroyed handles and then you turned that into something cool, that is something that interests me way, way more. But heavy modifications, I respect it a lot. I don't really... Oh, right. And that right there is why I don't like flipping false lie blades. I am switching to this Orion trainer right here. Oh, I can feel that inside my foot. That really hurt. Tip down. Whew. As I was saying, I respect heavy modification. It's not something that I'm personally interested in, though. Oh, that really hurt. Thank you for your question. Here's a few questions from Frontline. 1, are you going to host some comps made by you to involve balisong or to involve beginners more? No, I'm not really in the comp hosting space. There are a lot of things that top level flippers talk about with other comps that I just never think about, or I never really care to think about, or I don't understand enough to think about. So I'm going to stay far away from doing that stuff because I know that I don't have the experience necessary to do it. I would maybe be involved in one, but as far as me actually making one, no. Number 2, why do some have giant collections yet they don't flip most of them? What's the point behind having a large collection if you won't use most of them? People collect all sorts of things and then don't use them. I mean, 90% of some hobbies is just about collecting things that have no value other than just sitting on a shelf and standing there. I would know. Granted, I can pick any one of these up and play with them, but what you're asking is why someone would have a big case like this and not be able to use all of them. I can tell you why for me personally. It's because people send me these knives to make videos on, which means that I have a bigger collection than I otherwise would if I was spending my own money. But as for someone who buys all of them, they just love collecting. There is a certain joy that some people find in getting something new for their collection. And at least as far as things go for me with having a big collection like this, it is always, always nice to be able to look at this case and be able to pull out basically any experience that I could want. So even though every one of these balisongs isn't getting flipped every single day, the ability to just look in and pull out like a squid trainer and then flip that and have a vastly different experience than something like the Kraken trainer is a super cool thing to me. And to a lot of other people who have big collections, as well as just that typical thrill of the hunt collecting. Number 3, why do people disregard squid way more than other companies like MachineWise, LDY, and Nabali's? I don't think people do. I think Squid is a very high-rated company, but Squid is a company that has had a lot of objective issues over the years, like Mako handles snapping or red Loctite being used in screws causing some issues with disassembly. Things of that nature that cause people to start to look at them in a more negative light. I know I know a lot of people who have had issues with tsunamis and they've just kind of never been fully figured out. They've never been fully sorted out. But there is also something to be said about the fact that Squid is one of the most popular balisong makers out there in terms of like, at least they were, especially at the time that I joined. Squid was like the only thing that would come up if you tried to research balisongs or like beginner balisongs. And there is always going to be a group of people that just hate something because it is popular. So I think it's a mix of both of those things. But if you want a third, I don't think I disregard Squid, but Squid isn't my personal favorite maker out there just because they make a lot of more handle bias stuff. And a lot of my preferences lean more towards blade bias and neutral stuff, which Squid does not have a lot of. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily agree in saying that people disregard Squid, but those could be some of the reasons why you feel that way. Here's a question from Disco. I struggle to discern the balance of my knives just by flipping them. I can recognize when something struggles with certain tricks, like this is hard to chaplain or this fan's wobbly, but I can't extrapolate that into, oh, this bally is neutral. How do you figure something like that out? Do you have any tips for honing that skill? I could tell you if something is super handle bias, but when it comes to something like slight handle bias, couldn't tell you unless I heard it from someone prior. So actually, your answer is kind of in the question right there, unless you've heard it from someone prior. The way that I learned all of this stuff, I am someone who started off my balisong journey making a review about the Glider Arctic, a notoriously handle-biased balisong. And in this review, one of my first balisong videos on this website, I proudly and confidently exclaimed that the Arctic felt neutral to me, because I didn't have that experience. What gave me that experience was going to Blade Show or just talking to other balisong flippers and being able to experience more. Specifically, take a balisong that everyone agrees is one specific balance and flip it, and really start to understand how it reacts to this trick and this trick and this trick, and then compare that to something else. For example, take something like the Kraken, which pretty much everyone agrees, especially the Kraken trainer that I have here, everyone agrees that it's handle biased. So I flip this around for a while. Great, awesome, cool. And then I switch to something like the Squiddy Owl. And I see, okay, this feels vastly different. Feels like it's, it's flying off my hand a little bit more. And then what you do is you start to figure out what people call the Squiddy Owl. Do people call the Squiddy Owl blade biased or handle biased or neutral or whatever? And then you'll kind of start to build a spectrum almost, where you have a bunch of anchor balisongs to which you can compare everything else. So when I flip something like the Orion, I can say, this sticks to my hand more than the Squiddy Owl, but it doesn't stick to my hand nearly as much as a Kraken trainer. So it's probably a little bit of a slight handle bias there, or whatever the case may be. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that experience will come with, experience. That ability to tell what is what just comes from having a huge array of experience flipping different balisongs and understanding what the differences between them are. So my biggest recommendation to you would be try other people's balisongs. Blade Show is a great place to do that. Try a bunch of things, understand them, and then start comparing them to each other. And then eventually, you'll just be able to know when you start flipping balisongs where they kind of stand. Another thing that you can do is kind of what you're already doing. Hey, this struggles with chaplains. This struggles with fans. That's going to tell you where it sits on that balance spectrum, if you will. If something struggles with chaplains, there's a lot of reasons for that, actually, so maybe I won't use that as an example. But if something struggles with rollovers, if it feels like it's flying off your hand more often, then that would put it closer to neutral or blade biased. If something struggles to fan, that could be because there's too much handle weight. So then you start piecing things together. I have this balisong that has a really wobbly fan, but it sticks to my hands amazingly when I'm doing rollovers. You've probably got yourself a handle bias balisong there. And the degree of which it messes with the fans and improves rollovers will tell you how strong that handle bias can be. 2 little methods for you. Hopefully that helps. And thank you for your question. That was a good one. And finally, a bit of a shorter episode this month, coming in from Philip Flips. Hey Ethan, great video as always, thank you. What is the certain price point at which the balisong gets good enough to where you are not at fault for landing tricks and it's not keeping you from progressing? Would you highlight a certain balisong for this title? I'm going to answer in a way that might make a few people angry, but I don't think there's ever a price point where you are to blame for when you mess up. I think you're always to blame when you mess up. There are a few rare examples of balisongs that are so bad that no one could flip them well. But those are very few and far between. There is someone on Instagram whose entire account is based upon flipping plastic balisongs. There's someone else who really only flips with those heavy curved CSGO balisongs, and he flips amazingly with them. You just have to get used to the knife that you are using, and then just get better at it. You know, there's not too many knives from reputable companies where I would say, oh yeah, if you drop it, it wasn't your fault in that sort of way, because you just have to get more used to the knife that you're using. What I will say though is that I can understand how some people would struggle a little bit more with some of the cheaper balisongs, like the Canyon or the Impulse. So my personal pick would be that kind of $75 range. As long as you don't pick something like the original Vulp, pretty much any of those will give you performance that will take you through as long as you need. My personal pick here would be the Cheese. I hear a lot of high-tier flippers praise the Cheese, and a lot of high-tier flippers even still flip the Cheese that they own. So if you're looking for like the cheapest balisong that I would say will carry you through the hobby and that is good enough that you can learn on and you won't really mess up on because of some fault of the balisong, it would probably be the Cheese. But anyone can flip any balisong amazingly as long as they are used to the quirks of that balisong, with the rare exception of a few. Thank you very much for your question, and I believe that marks the end of this episode of Flip the Script. Some great questions today. Hopefully we get more for next month's episode, but I hope you all enjoyed. I hope I answered your questions in a way that you were hoping, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Later.